Hey everybody, welcome back. Crimson Chronicles podcast. We're in a little bit of a different setting today, as we have an opportunity to sit down with a guest that I'm sure everyone knows we're excited about. Coach Wimp Sanderson's been with us for a couple of episodes right at the beginning of basketball season, and we're going to have an opportunity to, Coach, spend some time with you, talk a little bit, and hopefully maybe blaze a few trails that we hadn't covered. Right, Tommy?
Well, it's great to have you back.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I guess my age, I'm glad to be anywhere.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Coach Sanderson was a fantastic coach for the University of Alabama, 1980 to 1992. And before that, a longtime assistant. His record at Alabama is 267 wins, 119 losses, 132 and 82 at the SEC. Was in the NCAA 10 times, 6 Sweet 16s, 1 NIT, was in 9 of his 12 years, 9 SEC tournament finals, and won 5 of them. SEC Coach of the Decade for the 80s. He was 1987, 89, and 90 SEC Coach of the Year. Inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame in 1990. Yeah, true legend among Alabama faithful and basketball fans. But Coach, it's great to have you.
Thank you, Tommy. I'm glad to be here, as I said earlier, and hopefully we can have people enjoy past basketball, I guess you'd say. Past basketball has been great at Alabama for a long, long time, not just me. A lot of coaches have done great there.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned in the first episode that we did with you, born and raised in Florence.
Yeah.
Tell us, you told us all about growing up in a one-bedroom house with another family and sharing a bathroom.
That's terrible if you want to take a bath.
And your father passing away at the age of 6 and your mama raising you, and your journey to Alabama with Coach Hayden Riley, first as a GA, then as an assistant in the early 60s. But there's one story you didn't tell us the first time about some of maybe shenanigans that went on at Flowers Hall when you were in probably high school. You want to tell us about?
Well, when I got off a tricycle at a young age, I started trying to play basketball somewhere. All the gymnasiums around Florence and Sheffield and Tuscany, wherever I could play. And Flowers Hall was a gymnasium that they used years and years ago, named for the athletic director there, who was a great guy. And we would go over and play basketball every day. The only problem was that on Saturdays and Sundays, they locked the Booger Bear up. You couldn't get in to play. And so I was tinkering around, lived down the street from there. I was tinkering around how I could get in there and play. Well, I saw some stuff one day as I was going out, and I went. I thought I'd try this. I went and got me a popsicle stick, and I had seen that the window of the girls' restroom dining area where they showered was kind of cracked open, and so I took that popsicle stick and I forced it under that window, and that was the way that on Saturdays and Sundays that we got in there to play. That's only one problem. Coach Flowers comes in and catches you in there playing, and you're in his classes. You know how to make an A into an F, don't you? Just one straight line. That's what it had been. It had been an F. And so the other problem was that once you got through playing, if you wanted to cool off, you went and you got into the big swimming pool. And unfortunately, Coach Flowers taught me swimming as well. I couldn't swim worth a hoot. I just barely could swim. I couldn't dive at all. I tried to dive. I hit those belly things. I couldn't do it. So, but so when we got through swimming, when we got through playing, we went into the swimming pool to cool off. Naturally, that was forbidden too. So we had two forbiddens. Now we got to go up and dress and dry off and get out of there before anybody comes on a Saturday or Sunday. Well, we got upstairs, we dried off, we were looking okay, I thought pretty good, and we're hearing the doors open downstairs. And I'm saying to my buddy, I'm saying, "Oh, I believe that's Coach Flowers." He said, "On Saturday?" I said, "I think that may be him." Well, I'm not sure what we need to do to let Coach Flowers not see us, but I'm not smart, but I'm a little bit slick sometimes on some of that stuff when I was playing basketball. They had a row of commodes there with doors to them. And so those doors there, naturally, when you went in there and sat on the commode, you shut the door and so forth. So I said, "Harris, You get in one and I'll get in the other. And get your cotton picking feet on top of the commode. So when he passes by, he won't see. And I said, if he sees your feet, you're dead, Harris. You got you. I said, you and breathe, suck in and hold your breath. Hopefully that he won't say anything, he won't see us. And that's what we did. We got on the commode in our street shoes. That was a penalty too. And we held our breath. And Coach Flowers came through there looking to see if he could find anybody in the dressing room that had been playing basketball and had been swimming. And fortunately, he just looked once. We were 88 and out the gate.
Well, I know you had some great stories growing up in Florence.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. You played at Abilene Christian
Yeah.
and Florence State, averaged 14.9 points per game, and scored over 1,000 points in your career. And if I'm not mistaken, you had a 31-point game against Jacksonville State. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I don't, I was looking at some of the things y'all had written to me about what we were going to talk about, and I thought, I remember having a good game against Jacksonville State, but either Jacksonville State decided they wasn't going to guard me, or all my shots that didn't go in ever went in that night, and I can't even remember a great deal about it. But if I did, I'm going to brag about it. I was average as running water. I was too slow, and we had decent teams, and we had a kid named not a kid, but we had a guy named Dabbs Ernest from Winfield, Alabama, who was our best player. He had been in the Navy and come back, and he was big and strong and physical and could really play, and he was our best player. But I played a lot of independent basketball around the state. We played for Garnet Electric Company. These companies would take us to different places, and we go and play with their uniforms on just for advertising. But that's what I did a great deal. But we played over at a place called the Bloody Bucket, which is over in Tuscumbia, Alabama.
The Bloody Bucket?
Yeah,
That
well,
gym?
yeah, that's where we always play. Reese Davis, of course, he's a lot younger now. I mean, he's Tuscumbia, but the Bloody Bucket was where we play a lot. And there was a guy over there who was a terrific player for Tuscumbia, and I had been trying to think of his name, and I cannot think of it. That's ridiculous, but I can't think of his name.
Well, Tommy, I'm taking that as a research challenge to find out a little bit about the Bloody Bucket, so we can have a conversation with Coach about that. Well, Coach, I know I'm going to ask you a question, and I think you're probably not going to want to answer right off the bat. So we're going to make this interview a winner right out of the gate. I know as parents, we like to treat our kids equally. We don't like to prefer one over the other. As a coach, I know, you're reluctant to talk about one player over another. I just want to ask you, players that you enjoyed coaching, who were some of the guys over the years that you had that kind of just special bond, special relationship, and enjoyed coaching?
I was hard on all my guys.
Hmm.
I went in there deciding that we need to be a little bit tougher than we had been. We had good coaching before me, and I was assistant coach, and so therefore I was part of it. I went in there thinking that I was going to mash these guys, and I did. And I was just talking to one of our former players before we ever did this interview 30 minutes ago, an hour ago, that called me in. And so I put them through. I put them through bad times. When you are going through the bad times, you do not like it. But when you get through the bad times and look back at it, you're glad that you did. I tell you what, Coach is hard to deal with. He was hard to play for, but boy, I'm glad he did this. Glad he did that. I don't know particularly by name, but I had point guards on my team. Gary Waits was really a good player for me. Just a lot of them, not just him in particular, but point guards that we kind of talked to the most because we built our team around what the point guards could do.
Got it.
And we did a good job with most of the time with our point guards. Gary Waits one day is going to the line to shoot a free throw, and I had jumped on him about something, and he turned back to me and he said, "I can't play for you. Just get you another point guard." And to me, that was terrific because if he's going to tell me that, think what he's going to say to those players that are not playing where they should be playing.
Right.
And he ran the game and he ran the show, except for what I said to him when we had a timeout. But I'll never forget that. Every time I see him, I lie. He said, "Get you another point guard. I can't please you." And I thought that was pretty good. But anyway, we had a lot of people that went, a lot of kids that went to the NBA, very good players that worked at, came into our establishment, probably not very good defensively, and we got them better. And a lot of them have come back to me just on the telephone or talk to them and talk about, sure, I'm glad you made us defend. Because if by defending, we played a lot longer in the NBA, made a lot more money. So, not just mentioning that one player, there's a pile of them I could mention. I guess I had to mention one, but point guards were, and I like guys who we signed, who we thought could play, and they were glad to be there. They were really, really glad to be there. And there were others that we had to work our fannies off to get.
Yep.
And really had we tried to we kept them okay, but because it wasn't what there is today. But there were a lot of good players. And this is no shot at anybody. And it's going to sound like one. The players that we had on our teams, those 12 years, we recruited. We didn't buy.
Yeah.
We didn't buy.
Yeah.
So we didn't have enough money. If we wanted to buy, it was illegal anyway, to buy them. And that's not anything wrong with buying them now, because that's what you can do.
Right.
One of the questions you're going to ask me is, what about college basketball now? And I'm going to tell you right now, before you ever ask the question, because if you're involved in the NIL business, then it needs to be a contract. So if you quit, you pay back the money that you have. It has to be a contract, because the agents are behind the scenes, and they're making their 4% or 6%, whatever they make. And we'd have it a lot better if we had contracts, and that way you pay back what you spent as a player. Now, whether that's ever going to happen again, I don't know.
We've created an equity where coaches have contracts, athletic directors have contracts. The only people right now that aren't bound by contract are the players.
Well, they say, I hear Bill say that, coaches can go anywhere, but coaches have buyouts. They have big buyouts. And I just think that there needs to be a buyout for a high schooler. And now the other factor too, besides that, we're seeing a little bit of high school kids changing states, which is, money. The love of money is the root of all evil. So it's the love of it that really makes it a problem. So I think that's one question you're probably going to ask me somewhere before this show. So,
well, while we're talking about it, if NIL had been around when you coached, which player from all of your teams would have been the most valuable?
Oh, I don't know. I think it'd be hard to say. I would say what occurred when I was assistant coach and CM was the head coach, but I recruited the guy. I don't really talk in terms of names, but Reginald King was a great player for us. Mule was. I recruited Mule for 2 or 3 years. He lives in Kansas City now. I hadn't talked to him in years. Recruited him through his mother, actually. We did a good job with his mother, and had him convinced to come to us. The funny thing, people talking about answering questions and what people say to me about recruiting. I was recruiting him, and I had recruited my fanny off on him for 3 years. Everything was all ready. At the end of the recruiting, he walked up to me and he said, "Coach, you wouldn't get mad at me if I went to Indiana, would you?" Now, I was waiting, the guys in the room with us. I said, "Well, give me an answer for that. What would y'all say to me?"
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to be mad at you. No, I'm not going to be mad. No, I'm not going to be mad at you. Go to Indiana. What's your answer?
Right.
And it's a very simple question. You wouldn't be, and I'm saying to myself, well, I wouldn't be mad at you, but I had to talk around it and through it, but I was saying yes or no. It wasn't no yes or no answer. You still been beating your wife. Yes or no. That was a booger bear question, and he asked it honestly, Bobby, that night, and I got in there and tried to recruit him at the last minute. But that was pretty funny.
And I assume that all the players that you coached that had great NBA careers, Robert Horry, Derek McKee, Jim Farmer was in the NBA a good while, Latrell Sprewell, all those guys would have probably gotten a lot of NIL money.
Yeah, they probably would have. Sure. I'm always very, very careful to mention players' names, because I had so darn many good ones. Reginald was so far gone, it was okay to mention his name because I wasn't the head coach to start with. But I generally just talk about how good the players were that we had. And I asked Robert Ory one time, everybody, quitting and changing schools. And I said, Robert, would you quit me? He said, I'd have quit you, but my mama wouldn't let me. So at least he gave me an answer. He said, I'd have quit you.
So what you're telling us is the recruiting strategy was get mama on your side, and then you could keep.
You get mama on your side, you got a chance. When we were trying to recruit Derek McKee, told us was recruiting him for us or working trying to get him. So I laughed after we got D and he was playing on our team. I said, I don't know what Art did to get you, but I think he gave your mother a Mother's Day card. I think he had her hair fixed, and he said, "Well, maybe." So Art's passed away, so he can't. But I think he had her hair fixed. That was about the extent of it, or a Mother's Day card back then.
Coach, I wondered about just, we're talking about NIL and with what NIL is intended to be, where it's supposed to be a player being able to use their image and their likeness to be able to, advertise for businesses or things like that. What do you think it would have been like if you had been able to create those kind of opportunities for the players, the guys that you got to coach?
Well, I would have gotten the money up to get them. That's been no doubt about it. Now I don't know that I could beat those two goobers at Auburn and UAB at the time because one of them had a big name and the other one had a bigger name than I did, and nobody wanted me to have a job anyway. So it was a situation where if I had been doing it at that time, I would have gone to the money people that had some money, asked them for money,
right,
and did everything I could to get them. One of the sad parts about all this now is if you find a good player and you're at a school that's lower than SEC or something, now people come after them.
That's right.
And the other factor too is they've all got agents.
Mm-hmm.
That agent is going to get 4% or 6%, whatever they get, and that makes it difficult in that you've got to go through those agents. If I'm doing that kind of stuff and I'm the parent, when I walk in there, I'm going to say to the coach, what happens if my son gets hurt and he doesn't play? He'll clear his throat. He won't answer it because you need a contract going both ways. He just wouldn't answer a question like that because he'd feel well, basically you talk in general terms. We'll take care of him. That's a general term.
Right.
You didn't tell me what you were going to do. Mm-hmm. You just told me you were going to take care of him. And so that's anyway. And you have some agents who are honest and try to really do the right thing for the guy. I've been knowing the family for a long time, but where there is money built into the process, there's going to be problems.
Absolutely. We've had folks that have been on the podcast with us along the way. I think Greg Polinsky even was one of the ones that said, talking about the number of people that are involved that are calling themselves agents, but they're not agents. No. They're just kind of hangers on and people that are around that are using that opportunity to, be able to help themselves.
Well, then, there may be an uncle in the family who played basketball somewhere and he's not too close to the family, but fairly close. The daddy doesn't really care. The daddy doesn't understand. And the uncle is kind of running the show and he's thinking, well, maybe I can pick up a few bucks myself. So there's all kind of, the other thing too is that you think about now they have these general managers in basketball.
Right.
And that general manager is on the phone all the time looking at the transfer portal. And the other factor he has is that the assistant coach who is in charge of that area, when I was there, Coach Bryant had areas for each coaches. The coach that's in charge of that area that had a player has to go to the general manager. Now, I got Joe Blow out here. They got to come up with something. I can't get up. And I'm struggling with it. So you think you can go to the car dealership and get me a car and something like that. So that becomes and you have, I would say, to be honest with you, a lot of hard feelings among coaches. Let's just say 16 teams in the league. You go to the SEC meeting in Destin. When you walk in and you see the guy just beat you on the guy, you sit over here. You don't sit next to him. I mean, that's no big deal, but you get rubbed the wrong way. Now, when you get rubbed the wrong way, and when you go to Destin, the wives are there. So the wives I don't want to see her. Her husband did this. And people forget that.
Right.
It's a booger bear problem.
Coach, people are talking about this year how what a great job John Calipari has done at Arkansas, especially in the last few games of the season. But what team of yours would you say were your best in terms of how you were able to?
Well, one of the problems I've got at my age, doggone it, is I can't put my teams together as well as I should. I just can't remember. I know the '87 team was an awfully good team until we got beat in the NCAA tournament, and it was sort of ruined. Not ruined, but disappointed.
Yeah.
The one I had where Loyola Marymount beat us 62-60, and they scored 144 points the night before, nights before against Michigan. Was a good team. I wish I could give you the the right team, but I'm not sure which one to give you. I think the team at '87. People don't understand. It's just as hard to win on the road in the SEC when I coach because we had to play everybody twice. This day and time, you play 3 teams twice. 2 years ago, you played 5 teams twice, which that means 10 games. In 18 games, you played 5 teams, 10 of the 18 games. Well, if you happen to get the right 5, you're
Yeah.
Fat City. So we had to play them all twice, and it wasn't easy. One year we won 8 out of 9 on the road, which was really a good year for us. But we won all the close games, and we had a heck of a team. That may have been the '87 team. I can't remember.
Well, Coach, I'm gonna obviously you don't want to prefer one player over another, but I'm gonna read some names to you of the guys that are a part of your coaching tree: Rick Barnes, Mike Davis, Benny Dees, Mark Gottfried, David Hobbs, Don Maestri, Porter Mosier, Greg Polinsky, Dario Robinson, and Derek Fisher.
Yeah, a lot of good players there.
I mean, and a lot of great coaches. And I think the legacy that you've created by the guys that have worked under you is incredible.
Well, I think having worked with me, they might have done things opposite. They might have not liked 1 o'clock practices in the morning. They might have not liked some of the things I did. I think you learn in a positive way, but I also think you learn in a negative way. You could ask those guys that you talk to there, and they'd say, "I'll tell you one thing, Wimp did this. I'll tell you one thing, I wasn't going to do that." It wasn't anything bad, Dad, but it was just different times, a little bit different, not different times, because different times are now. But basically, uh, those coaches that came in had a way of doing it when they got there. What did I always thought that when a assistant coach ran into another assistant coach and he said, "Whew, I bet Wimp's hard to work for." If they told the truth, the answer was he wasn't very hard to work for. I was hard to work for if you did not recruit. If you did not do a good job recruiting, if you had an area or coach and you didn't stay on top of it, I was hard to work for. What I tried to do was let everybody do what they did best. If David Hobbs was better with the defense, I let him do more of the defense. If whoever was worked the post people, I let everybody try to do what. And somebody said that about me. Well, you didn't do this. Well, Coach Bryant let the defense coordinator. Football's got an offense coordinator. Football's got a quarterback coach. I did sort of the same thing. I ran the show and I did what I had the last word, and we planned our practice in my office what we need to do. I'm going to give you 45 minutes today on defense. What do we need to work on? Well, here's what we need to work on. And he would say what we need to work on, and we'd work on it. So it wasn't like we're doing something for 45 minutes. I might say we didn't do this good, so we're going to do it for 20 minutes. I think I tried to let those guys who had those kind of abilities do what they could do best. And some worked with offense better than others. Some worked with defense better than others. Some recruited better than others. And I just think that the head coach needs to let the guys do what they can do best. And then when they get their own job, they can do the way they want to.
Oh, it's funny to hear. We had Greg Polinsky on, and Greg said the exact same thing that you said about recruiting.
Yeah.
That he said the one thing that everybody had to do, and that everybody was expected to do, is they were expected to recruit.
Yeah.
And that's neat to hear. The fact
Greg did a good job recruiting for us. Shoot, he had 2 assistants out in Texas, and I had called one a year or so ago before I called Greg. He was out working with Greg. He didn't want to move, but I had seen Greg work prospects around it, been around him when I was out recruiting, and so I didn't know him from Adam's house cat. I just called him one time, and he ended up at Alabama. Did a good job.
He was on Tom Pender's staff.
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah,
That's right.
he did a good job, but I didn't know him, so a lot of times you would like to hire somebody that you know and you think will be loyal to you, because loyalty is so darn critical, because you're gonna make so many mistakes, that you things that you wish you had done differently if you get beat, and so it loyalty is he's I think working hard and being loyal are the two biggest factors in having an assistant coach. And if you find that out uh, pretty quickly, you think you know, or you wouldn't hire them to start with, but sometimes you miss.
Coach, it's well documented that you and Sonny Smith are great friends. I know every Friday morning on your 100.9
Yeah.
Inside the Locker Room show,
He remembers it. He's on.
you can wake him up at
Yeah.
but at around 8:15, if anybody hadn't heard of it,
Yeah.
get the 100.
Vern Gosden would be playing his record. Vern Gosden.
So tell us about you and Sonny.
Well, I thought that was going to come up, and Sonny and I go back a long time when we were both recruiting. He was recruiting and I was recruiting. He was at the Virginia, I guess Virginia Tech,
VCU.
yeah, VCU.
Yeah.
And he was recruiting and I was recruiting. We were recruiting the same people. We went after sometimes the same people, trying to get them, and just sort of halfway formed a friendship there. And then we played each other. You know, the guy that won was all happy, but we didn't make much remarks about each other's team or program. We didn't, darn sure want to beat each other. And sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't, but we just kind of hit it off pretty much. As the years went by, we ran to each other more and more and more. And Sonny got a head job much quicker than I did. So anyway, when I got to Alabama, Sonny was the head coach. The new head coach was coming in, and he had a tragedy in a hotel room. He was killed and the fire, and Sonny took the job, and so he did a really good job. I got ill as I could be today on a radio show where a guy he came in and said he never has ever been anything at Auburn like Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl's terrific. He had a great team this year, but Sonny had some very good teams, darn good teams, but that's a long time ago. Final Fours, no, but Auburn basketball back then was good, just as ours was back when Johnny D at the University of Alabama beat Kentucky and Montgomery, the most that anybody ever scored 100 points on Kentucky and beat them. That's too long a story, but it's basketball at Alabama has been good for a long time, but among a lot of coaches, it's like everything else. It's had some ups and downs a little bit, but not much. Alabama has won the most basketball games of anybody in the league except Kentucky.
I love how you and Sonny go at each other.
Yeah.
And y'all are on many banquets, podiums together, and tell jokes about each other and about recruiting battles back in the Charles Barkley or Bobby Lee Hurd, all the early 80s battles y'all had. And it's great to see that camaraderie that you have, even though he's Auburn through and through and you're Alabama through and through. Are there any other coaches that you coached against?
Well, I was trying to think about that I thought maybe y'all might ask me that. No, Hugh Durham was a friend of mine at Georgia. He was at Florida State, and he offered me an assistant job, and I drove down there. And I had been at Alabama 12 years at the time, assistant, and I looked at it pretty closely and decided at the last minute I wouldn't go. But we were friends for a long time. Hugh Durham was a good basketball coach and a good recruiter. But the funny part about all this is I was new and was around probably more football coaches because I was around them longer. Coach Bryant and I weren't big personal friends, but we were okay. We knew each other. And Ray Perkins comes in, and Ray Perkins was everybody got all mad at Ray. And Ray, I tell the story that when I was with Ray Perkins, Ray really liked our basketball program. He liked me. He went to Atlanta when we beat Illinois to go to the 16. He was really supportive of me. And sometimes when I was with Ray, when I got there to speak, I said, tickled to death that Ray Perkins is here. You may not be. I'm tickled to death that he's here. He's the only guy I know with personality worse than mine. They all laugh. I don't let Ray have a laugh. And then Bill Curry came in, and Bill and I got to be really good friends. Bill was not liked because what he was liked by people like me, and I was crazy about Bill and his family. And to be honest with you, when they hired Ray Perkins, it never dawned on them that they'd never been Auburn. And so I mean, when they hired Bill Kirk, so I was friends of just about a lot of the football. Gene Stallings and I were Gene Stallings and I came to Alabama at the same time, and he rented a house out in Alberta City. And when Coach Bryant gave him enough money to get a new house, I moved into his. I moved into the house that he moved out of. One of the cute things about that is John Mark, who's a terrific kid, Down syndrome kid.
Yeah.
We could get into a crowd and Beams would say, John Mark Wimp on the bench. And he would get up, he'd throw stuff up in the air, and he'd run up and down, in front of the bench. He'd throw stuff down on the ground. I'd say, do it some more, Mark. And he'd throw his hands up, and it was great to see.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he mocked me on the bench.
Well, speaking of that, and Rick, I know you got another question, but this leads into your rapport with the officials.
Yeah.
On the sideline.
That's right.
Is absolutely legendary.
Yeah.
And back in the late 80s when we had Wimp Night, Plaid Night, and called it the Plaid Palace and did all that promotion, the crowd fed off of you and that. What do you tell these guys when you're running up the court, the official is right there and you're getting in his ear?
Well, I tried to make them like me to start with before the game started. Boy, I sure am glad to see you here tonight. I was thinking we was going to get so-and-so. We got a break. We got a break. I hope they're working that way you come back. That's before the game started.
Right. Get that over with.
Yeah, I get that. And I might say something not funny, but something abusing to them sometimes when they would, and then I would be mad at times. They had the box, the coach's box back then, and put that in. And I learned that when they got there, they would say to each other, now Wimp's going to get out of the box when we get down to the far end. If he does, nail him. So I would get on the box and I would get my feet on the line, but not over the line. And so they would say, I guarantee you. And finally, they would finally get me. And when they come over, I said, "Crap, why don't you call the game instead of worrying about when I get out of the box?" That's all you do. No wonder you're not calling any better game. You're trying to see if I get out of the box. And so a couple of them admitted one time. I was asked the other day if I ever got kicked out of a game. And I did. I got kicked when I was in Little Rock. I got kicked out of the game against Bobby Knight. He should have gotten kicked out too for getting a dang official. But I got kicked out of the game. And then when I got kicked out, one of my players got into it with one of their players. So I started to come back in. When they did, they said, if you would take one more step, we're going to forfeit the game. So I did. They cheated. No doubt about it. It was hard to take, but we weren't going to beat him anyway. But I did get kicked out of one game out. But the thing about it was, and here was the key to me. I almost got a bunch of technicals. Almost was in there. I almost did this. He almost got kicked. Those kind of things. I just like officials, and I don't know if you'll ask me this or not, but I'll tell you, I just like officials that when they go on the road, they have the guts to call the fouls. I think they have the intestinal fortitude, the toughness about them. And then, boy, some of them are good. You get on the road, and the call is going to be against the home team, and you're willing to make that call. Naturally, I like for them to be in shape, and naturally, most of them are. But also like for them to be in a position to where they saw the play rather than guess.
Yeah.
Block charge, you can argue about whether that's right, wrong, or other above it when they do it. I like for them to be in, I don't like for them to guess, to try to think that they saw something, and when the hand was reaching, did they really get the guy? So, but the fish, I had Burl Crowell was a gravelly kind of guy, voice, and I jumped on him all the time, and he had cancer, and he died. And so I called his wife, and I was telling her, and she said, he just loved working for you. I said, run that by me one more time. She said, he just loved working for you. So I said, well, I enjoyed it. I said, I'm not sure about that, but he was, you get good rapport with some of them. Some of them, they come in with mad on, and you're better off leaving it alone. You got one thing you got to do with players and with officials, you got to read them. Better for me to jump on one player and get more out of him and another player, not quite as much. I know y'all interviewed some of my players. They probably told you that.
They have, and they, it's amazing what they said about you being able to read their psyche and know, like but they said like you had a great intuitive sense of knowing who to coach what way. Melvin Cheatham was the one I think about the most, and he talked about that he couldn't have taken some of the hard coaching and that sort of stuff, but he said when you corrected him, he got things corrected, and you guys had an understanding.
Well, he was upset with him because he wasn't getting to shoot as much the first couple of games.
He said that too.
And so we were going to play Mississippi State, and Mississippi State had beaten us at home, I believe, or somewhere. And we were playing them in the first round. I don't know how I can remember this. First round of the tournament in Orlando. And they wanted to see if they could have the tournaments on somewhere that was a home court.
Mm-hmm.
So they did that twice, at Orlando once and Atlanta once. We won both places. So uh, that was the thing that happened there. And on the way down there, I said, before that, I said to Melvin, I said, we're going to put some stuff in for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can hurt him with this and this. And I'm going to put, from then on, he loved it. If you could have interviewed him that night, I'd been Mr. America because I put in all this stuff for him, and it worked. We won where he had lost the previous time in Mississippi State. So yeah, he thought I was a genius, but up until that time, it takes and I had guys who struggle with me some, and it's okay. It all worked itself out to the probably. I would have lost more players than most coaches if it had the transfer route. I mean, I laughed at it. But I wouldn't have a team to practice after the first week or two. So that's the reason I asked Robert all that. Robert never answered it. Robert had a guy, a coach for him in high school who was tough on him. He's tough as nails, and Robert's mother made him behave.
Yeah. And
so I thought it was going to be an easy move for him when I got him because he'd already had that. Yeah. But I think I went a step further.
Well, Coach, before I ask you this next question, I want to tell you a story. So back when I was younger, I coached a little bit of junior high ball.
Yeah.
And you were my inspiration. And so I want you to know.
And then
listen, I had a plaid jacket and everything. Like I was serious about it. And one night we were playing a game, and I had a pretty good little point guard, and he picked the pocket of the kid that was bringing the ball up, and just as pretty as you please, and laid the ball up, came back down the floor. There was an official that just could not stand him, and you could see it just all over, and this official just didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so there was a foul or something. There was a stop and play, and my point guard was he was like bent over a little bit, kind of pulling on his shorts, something I didn't like for him to do. And all of a sudden I saw the official walk up, and he said something to him. And so I, of course, motioned for my point guard to come over. I wanted, so they were shooting free throws, and the point guard came over, and I said, what did he say to you? And he said, he told me one more and he's going to throw me out. I said, one more what? He said, Coach, I don't have any idea. So I channeled my inspiration, and I tried to do things the right way. And so I waited until the next stop and play. The official was up by the timer's table. I walked over. I had my back to him. I didn't even face him. Had my clipboard up. And I said, Mr. Ref, my point guard just told me that you told him one more and you're going to throw him out of the ball game. He said, Coach, you need to shut up and go to the bench, or you can go with it. And at that point, like, I felt like the spirit of Wimp Sanderson came over me.
You nailed him.
I did. So I didn't turn around. I didn't face him, but I said, "Hey, is this the only job you can get making $3.15 an hour?" Yeah. I ended up being spending the rest of the game in the locker room listening. Had all the dads coming out of the stands going, "What'd you say to him? What'd you say?"
Well, I got a question relating to that. All your years, is it worth it to ride the officials in terms of calls down the road? I mean, is it worth it if you got John Clockerty who called many of them? Is it worth it to get down? Is it going to work? or you gonna get a call down the road because
Well, some coaches think you can. I watch the coaches now. They argue different than I did. There's a way to argue. I think I argued better. I don't coach them better, but I think I knew how to argue better.
Well, tell us how you argue.
Well, I think I'd try to make them like me early about how glad I was to see them, and then I'll tell them something kind of off the cuff. It might be a little bit funny, something, and then I would do it like that rather than getting them mad at me at the very first 2 or 3 sentences. I just have always thought I argued better than some. I didn't coach better, but I argued better. And I just didn't get, one more like that, coach, you go get a technical.
Yeah.
Here's the key to that: one more.
One more.
Yeah. So I just have it like that. But most of them to this day, we played to go to the NCAA tournament at Little Rock on the last possession, and the official missed the call, our ball, and they gave it to them. I still think of it. I even know him, and I still think of it. I've been meaning to mention it to him, but he's in Florida, so I don't guess I will.
does not miss an opportunity to talk to the officials every.
And in his particular case, that may help.
Yeah.
I don't know. It may help him. I did it some. My gyrations more were people would say that they came just to watch me coach. Well, back then we needed crowds.
Mhm.
It didn't hurt. They didn't hurt. And the plaid sport coat thing was an accident. The plaid sport coat thing, I wore, for several reasons, I wore a plaid sport coat and they wrote about it. And I wore it again and they wrote about it again. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want. The biggest problem with the plaid sport coat is it put me ahead of the players. The players need to be better than the coach. But it started clicking a little bit. Once it did, they did Tommy and them there. They did a lot of stuff to try to make the plaids bad and all that kind of stuff. We had one or two people that didn't like it, but basically most of them liked it, and the plaid thing got pretty big, strictly 100% by accident. I had no idea anything about it. And I've told Tom this before. I called a prospect in Georgia. So and the mother answered the phone. I said, I'd like to come on and visit your son. She said, well, are you going to wear one of those plaid sport coats? I've told y'all that.
Yeah.
I had another down in Florida where the sister said, could I touch it?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, you can touch it. You can have it. It's fine.
Well, Coach, if you thinking more about the rules of basketball, if you had the ability to change one rule to make things different, what would you
transfer? Probably the contract rule on getting him eligible, getting money. I think if you're going to go into a program and you're not going to stay because you're not playing as much as you thought you were going to play, but you took that money, you've got to pay it back. I think that's one thing that would straighten it out a little bit. Soon see him go to 5 years of eligibility. Just be 5 years. When I first went to Alabama, we had 5 to play 4, but it was already announced. You had 5 years to play 4 to 5 years, and I forget how many games you had to play on for that year to count, but that's the way we did it back then. So I think that would be something that the transfer route is really hard. Maybe one transfer would be the best thing to do. Not let them transfer one, and everybody throws it back to the coaches. They change around stuff. But I just think that coaches most of the time they pay as I've already said, a fee too to move to another school. I don't know. I think we're getting ourselves in a real problem. We've got the lower division kids, as I've already said in this interview, that went to a lower division school, but turned out to be so darn good that everybody in the country is after them.
That's right.
And it's not just an assistant coach slipping around to the mother and daddy. It's an agent getting involved with them to where I can get you this, I can get you that.
So, Coach, one of the things that seems like an inequity to me is coaches are mandated to have press availability at the end of a ball game.
Yeah.
And so right at the end of a game, no matter what's happened, coach has to go sit in front of the microphone and toe the line. Officials don't have to do that. Yeah. Do you think it would be a good idea to somehow create press availability for officials so that they might have to answer for the decisions they've made?
I think that what they've tried to do in a small way is to recap the last 2 minutes of the game where the ball went out of bounds. As far as getting in there and going over plays, I doubt it. I think the head of officials would be totally against it. I think that Garth Grisman is the new head of SEC, as a friend of mine, and I just think it would create more and more controversy because people are looking for something to write about.
Yeah.
And if you write the story, then I write a different story. You think the call was correct. I think it was wrong. Once it's made public, it's everywhere. Probably not.
Well, Coach,
That's good.
this has been a fantastic interview.
Nice.
We really appreciate you joining us. We appreciate Lifeline Children's Services and providing the studio for us and giving us the opportunity to be able to come together and have this interview with Coach in person. We invite you to comment. We want to hear from you. Would love to hear about what you think about this interview. Send us some more questions so that we can have another opportunity to have Coach on again and go even a little deeper, and also let us know what you'd like to see on the Crimson Chronicles podcast. And so, Tommy, as we finish up our episode every one of them the same.
And before Tommy says anything, I want to thank both of you for having me, and that y'all do a great job. Not only watching the things that I've done, but there's so many coaches and so many people that y'all been involved with, and I'm big because of my age going back and looking at past stuff, and that's what this does. This gives you a chance to go back and look at whether it's football, basketball, whatever. You go back and look at past stuff. People are caught up so much in the times, and that's fine. But they also might like to show their grandkids what happened.
That's right. That's right. And Coach, we love it. The thing is, this is the kind of stuff we sit around and talk about all the time.
Y'all came up with a great idea.
Well, thanks. And we appreciate you coming and being with us, and we look forward to doing it again.
And we want our older folks like us
That's
to
right.
reminisce about
Middle age.
middle-aged like us reminisce, but we want the younger folks
That's right.
to learn about the history of Alabama athletics.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I think you come on with a good thing, and there's so much you can, there's so much you can do. Gosh, it's.
Well, and the availability of things like YouTube and the places we're able to be and do this, we want to build some community around the fact that folks, the kind of things we do around the water cooler, or the stuff that we do is we're sitting around watching a game together, and the conversations that come up about years gone by, we want to be able to share that with multiple generations and be able to build community around that. So we thank you for being part of it.
Okay, glad to do it.
Thank you.